Hello everyone, so today we're going to take a quick look at Affinity Designer version 2 and we'll do a quick demonstration and create a simple art project. So if you're new to Affinity Designer, this is going to be a nice tutorial for you to follow along. Now I have a lot of tutorials on version 1, but since the version 2 is almost available for free, because you have 6 months license to just test out the software, I think it's a good time to just start a good Affinity Designer 2 tutorial. So first, I'm just going to hit on continue trial. You can get a copy of Affinity by going to, I believe it's serif.com, or you could just open up your web browser and type download Affinity Designer 2. So I'm just going to say download Affinity Designer. You might not even use the 2. Sorry, my internet's not connected, so I'll just quickly do that and just connect that. And once that loads up, you'll just go to Affinity. So I'm just going to hit try again. So you just go directly to Affinity, and here we are, graphic design and illustration. Now you don't even need to register, sign up, use your credit cards and all that, but it's really nice to have an account with them, and you can go to try for free. Right now they're on a sale, so they're giving off the software at 50% off, which is actually a good deal. So it's like USD 34 right now, and you get a full license. You might want to grab the universal license, but hey, I'm not marketing for Affinity Designer. So here on the store button, the shopping bag, you can click the basket and you can click this is my account. So we could just go to designer, and when you scroll down, I believe we should have an option to try it, and here it is, try for free. So we'll just click on that, try for free, select your operating system. This is also available for Windows and the iPad. We'll just click try for free, and this should take you to the store where you could just download this. Now if you're new, you can add your details, and you can just select your OS, add your email account, and that's it. You can get your download link, and you can try this for 6 months. Double click on it, install, and you're good to go. So if you've installed the Affinity Designer, you should be able to have that in your start menu. If you just hit your Windows key, you should actually see the version 2, but if you can't see that, just search here and type Affinity like so. So you should see your the program actually pop up, and I'll have to go to the apps tab, and you can actually see Affinity Designer version 2. What I like to do is just right click and go to pin to taskbar. So on my taskbar, you can actually see it down here. I have the Affinity software just tagged on the taskbar, and I just hit on that, and that's going to open up. Once you open it, you're going to see this version 2 for Windows and the universal license, and they'll tell you, the amounts and all that, but I'll just hit the continue trial. Well, so it's going to open up and give you this splash window for a new document. Let's just start from what we see right here. This is just a shorthand, and it also gives you important lessons you can download and see how those lessons were set up. So if I go down here to lessons, these are all examples, and one good one to start with is this one right here. You can just click on this and open it up, and you have a already made project with comments that shows you how that project was actually built on its own. So I'll just go back to new, and if you want, you can close this. Just so you know, you can just go to file and go to new, and that window is going to pop up again. You can stop this from showing up by just clicking on this show on startup, but I just like to have it open up because that's where new projects start. So what do we see here? We see different file formats, default templates of most commonly used file paper sizes with their presets. So here we could just see all these different paper sizes, and you can actually group them based on what you want to do. You can work with photo, web, Again, these are all just lined up right here. You can have your devices. Say you want to design a UI for a specific iPhone, you can actually do that here. Let's say an architect. Basically, you get the idea. And apart from that, you can also set things like the layout. You can change it from the pixels to inches to feet, yards, any standard measurement you have. You can also click on the color and use CMYK in case you want to save your ink and you really want to print your document. You can set margins. This is good for illustrators. Let's say you're creating a children's book and you want to be able to see your margins and know where your bleed area is. And here comes your bleed. You can set your bleed to and then scale for your document. So you can just set all of that right here. And basically that's it. Nothing super special here. Let's click on create and we'll have a CMYK profile A4 size document. Again, you can always go back to your document setup and change a few of these settings in case you would like to kind of change these back. Now you can see this back again. We can set this back to RGB and hit OK, and it's gone. So it doesn't mean you can't really have that back. So we can also go to settings, and this is going to open up the program settings, and you can do things like adjust your performance, and there are a lot of things you could do. For example, if you're worried about the UI, you can go to your user interface and change the grayness level for the background like that. You can go to your tools and customize how your tools work. Right, so that's just, by the way, for performance. You can increase your RAM usage in case you want to improve the performance of the program, but after you change it, you might need to restart, I believe. And then here you can set your renderer. Right now I'm using the GPU I have on my system, which is it's going to automatically detect what's best. So that's just, by the way. And apart from going to the settings button, you can go to file and you can go to edit and you can go to settings, and that's where that setting is going to pop up. I believe there's a control shortcut key for that. And if you go to edit, you'll actually see every shortcut key right here. So it's control and a comma, control plus and a comma, and this should open up the settings. So Affinity Designer has done something super great here. They call this personas. So in case you're a vector artist, this is the default vector tool. If I go down here to a shape, let's say I select here. So I'm just selecting this multi-tool right here, and I'll just select a rounded rectangle. I can just draw a shape. Now I have a stroke and a fill. Now this is the stroke. It doesn't have a size yet. If I just click the size and drag this up, you can see the width increasing. So you have a stroke and fill, and your fill is going to be whatever default color you have selected, especially when you've selected the object. If I draw under the shape and I change that color, it's going to affect just this new shape. And we can also change the color of the fill as well. So we can actually see the stroke, changing the color of the stroke. And right here, we can actually use swatches. So it's on grays. I can change this to color and select any color. At the same time, we can select any color from the color wheel, and you can change how that looks like. Let me just show you what I mean. If I go to the hamburger menu and click on this, we're on wheel. I can change this to sliders. I can change this to boxes. We can also change this to tint, but I just like leaving that on the wheel because it's really nice to see those color harmonies kind of like playing around. You can get rid of the stroke if you don't need it by just clicking on that, and you only have a fill without a stroke. So this is basically roughly how the vector tools work. We have the classic loved and hated pen tool. You can just click around and create a shape. Once you're done, hold Control and click away. Now you actually have a closed shape with no stroke and no fill. If you quickly wanted to fill this, just select any color, and you can actually see you have your fill right here. We can use tools like the gradient tool. With our shape selected, we can add a nice little gradient that's going to transition between two selected colors. And if you hit on this gradient shape here, hit on the first point, you can change the color of your gradient and also set a position of how you want that gradient to have its fall off. I'll just go to the ending here and just try something like that. Yeah, that's not bad. So I'm just using colors that are close to each other. So basically that's how you can do that. There are a lot of things you can also do. You can add shapes, you can cut out shapes from shapes using the Boolean tool. And let's say, well, we have another rounded rectangle. I'll just draw this rounded rectangle here. And what I'll do is to select this one, hold Control, select these two, and here I could try a subtract, and you can see we have a new shape right here that, although this method is destructive, what I usually like to do is, I'll just show you a nice little trick, is to take this shape like this one that I'm going to use to cut out the shape, and we can set the layer to erase, and you can see we actually have the shape. And what we can do is to group things. Now that's a cool thing, you can group. So I'll hit these two, hit Control G. Now we've grouped these two shapes together, and what we can do now is to open up this shape and go to this curve, and with the move tool, with the move tool selected, you can see we can just hide out this section and say, hey, look, we're cutting out this section. That's one very easy way to do this. There's a shape builder tool that's even much more efficient and much more built to create complicated shapes. We can actually see some right here. We have wireframe mode. We can just see wires, right? We don't want to see any of those details right here, so we can just select any of these modes like that. Pixel preview, retina, wire display mode. Any of these modes we can use that to set and build these tools. So this is the vector workflow. There's also a node tool. So say for instance, I have this shape and I want to add more points. You can actually see I can't do that. If I go to the node tool, I can select some of these points, I can change them, but I can't customize this shape. If I click on this one, I can add a point here. So now I have an additional point, I can add a point here and add another point here as well. That's what the node tool does. We can change each point to a smooth or sharp point. For example, I have this point selected. If I click on this convert to smooth, now I have anchor points. I'll just zoom on that. I'm zooming by holding Control, plus and minus, and you can easily go down here to the bottom right and just tear out the navigator by clicking on the title and pulling it out. And now you can see you can actually zoom in and out, and you can move to this view anywhere. So it's a very awesome way to view your artwork from a distance and be able to zoom in and out using the navigator rather than hold Control or even use the built-in tool. So I'm just going to drag this. We can't really, let's see if we have the right tool selected. Yeah, good. So I was just trying to pull this out. So let's just continue here. So if I go back to the node tool, and the shortcut key is A, by the way, to move or to transform, you can use V. So we're on the node tool. We can select any of these Bezier handles to create a nice smooth curve. So you can see we're pulling that away. It's getting more curvier down here. And we're pushing this point and it's making it more curvier like that. Curvier. Nice. New word. So we'll just hit this one here and you can see the same thing. If you hold Alt, you're going to have a if you hold Shift, sorry, you're going to have this point actually snap at angled degrees like that. That's super awesome. You've seen how we can group and use that. So let's see how we can change a default shape, because we have this shape right here and we noticed we can't really add more points. The only thing we need to do is to go here and say convert to curves. Now we have a curve. We can add a point here, we can add a point here, and a point here. We can also cut a shape when you want to just slice a shape using the knife tool. So we can just say, hey, we just want to slice this guy right here. Or we could just do something weird and just and just split this right here. Just divide this. Let's see if we're having any effect right here. So here, one shape, another shape, another shape. It looks like nothing happened, but when you click on the move tool, you can see you've split a shape like that. So we have multiple shapes, and we just cut that shape. This is looking like a Nintendo Switch right now. If I just hit Control C and V. So what I just did was to just duplicate that shape, Control C, V. I'll just use the move tool, drag this, and we can flip a shape horizontal. If you look at the top bar here, we have ways to flip a shape. So I'll just flip this, and you can see we have this nice little shape. So that's the rough summary. There are lots of other tools. There's the spiral tool, there's the pencil tool, which is similar to the pen tool, but here you can just use a freehand system and you have your tool already. The stroke is set to empty because we can see this white shape with a red diagonal line. But by the time we add a little this like that, and we can just draw any shape we want like that. So I'll just undo that, and let's go to the other interesting way to work with Affinity Designer. So we're on the, by default, we are on the let's say the designer persona, which is your vector art style. I'll just select all these. So I'll select the first one in the layers, and I'll just float the layer and just drag it down. Select this one, hold shift, select the last one, hit Ctrl G to group it, and I'll hide the layer. So that's one cool way to, hide things. You don't need to delete anything. So I'll just keep the layer here, select it, and I'll just move this over here. Now notice what happens to these set of tools. If I click this icon that looks like a set of squares with colors, we're now in the pixel persona. If you're coming from a tool like GIMP or Krita or Photoshop or basically any pixel art software, you're now in the pixel persona. The difference between that and the designer persona is that on the designer persona, we could zoom in and we have pixel perfect art. So I've zoomed in way in, and you can see our edges still remain crisp because these are Bezier curves. So that's something to keep in mind. I'll just go back here and I'll hide that group. So to use a pixel persona, if we go to the pencil tool, the paintbrush tool, this is quite large, so I'll just zoom out, and notice your workspace is slightly different. Apart from the tools being different, all your changes are not going to be affected. So here I'll go to the navigator and I'll just zoom out a little bit and just make sure I'm around here. So now I'm going to select the brushes section, and what we're going to see is a list of classic brushes. I'm on brushes, I'm on textures, so I'll just go here and just say basic. So now I have my basic set, and I'll hit the foreground and just start sketching something here. Most likely, I think my color or the memory is slightly lagging, so I'll just go over here and make this dark. Now what we need to do is to make sure that we create a pixel layer, or the assistant is going to do it for us. If for some reason your assistant is turned off, you'll be able to actually do that. Excuse me. Let me just take a sip of water here. If your assistant is turned off, you can't do that. So let me just show you what I mean. I'll delete this. So I just try to create a painting, and the assistant added a pixel layer for me. Now if I know I'm going to be creating pixels, all I need to do is to I'll close this group, and right here it says add pixel layer. We add a pixel layer, and that's our layer. So let's create a nice background layer. I'll hit the fill tool or the paint bucket tool and select a neutral warm kind of like paper tone. Just make it slightly like that, and I'll just hit this. And this should fill our canvas with the color selected. Am I sure this worked? Let's try it here. So now this worked, but we have, I believe I put it in that group. I don't want it to be in this group. So what I'll do is just click this and drag it over here and put it to the top. And here we can see that works. So I'll just go back here, pick a nice warm color, and then hit this. Good. So we have this, and I'll just lock this layer by hitting that padlock icon to make sure I'm not drawing by accident on that layer. So this is going to be our background. So let's call this BG for the background. So now we have that background. I'm going to lock this background layer and create another pixel layer on top. I'm just going to call this a sketch. So what we're going to do is just quickly test out that. So let's go back to the paintbrush and see. We actually have this brush here, and the flow is on 100%, and we don't have any pen pressure applied. So if you're using a Wacom, it's a good thing to just select this and just try doing that. I see what's actually happening right there, like that. So I'll just undo all of that and just increase the brush size a bit, and I want to change that brush. So for the basic brushes, I want to check on pencils because I like having a little bit of texture on the brush. So let's try a HB pencil. It's on size 32, and let's just try sketching out something there. I think I like this one. So we can hit E for the eraser tool and just erase anything here. The hardness is set to 100%, so you can just set the hardness to something much more soft. And well, let's see, let's try creating a nice rock shape like that. So I'll just drag a nice little boxy shape right there, and maybe we'll have another nice little box shape like that, and maybe we'll have one more here. And what we want to do is just add some nice little contour for this shape. And you can just see how that's actually panning out. I might want to change the color. Okay, that's totally fine. The color is good. It's not a problem. So we have some nice little angular shape right here for the pencil, for the rock rather. And I'll just quickly shade out this section. So I'll say the light is coming from here. This is my light source. And what we want to do is just add a little bit of shading right here using hatching. So I'll just go over here and just quickly draw some hatch lines just to show where the shadows are. So I'm just gently using the Wacom brush, nothing too complex here. And we'll just drag this down here. And we'll do this for this other little rock down here as well. And it has another plane here. And we'll do the same thing for this rock right here. Now the flow is set to 15, and what that means is it's going to take 15% of your pressure to apply the intensity to make the color reach 100%. So what I mean is, if I just do this and keep applying pressure, we can see this is our highest, and it took a little while to get there, right? We didn't just have an abrupt change in that color. If we change this to say like about 40%, and you can easily get to a darker color when you actually do that. So I'll just set the flow back to about, let's say 17%, and let's make this slightly larger because we want to use that to fill up this space like that. Just to add a little bit more detail to this guy right here. So we just see that. Nice. So what I want to do is just bump this up a bit, set the brush size slightly down, and let's just add a little bit of form to this edge. Now this is a quick rough test. Nothing's there. I think adding a little bit of edges here makes it look more rock-like. We'll just add some edges here. we just see that. And it'd be nice to have a little bit of cracks on this, right? So let's go ahead and down the flow a bit. And let's just add a little bit of cracks, nothing too complex. Let's say this crack just goes in here and just darken this edge a little bit. Let's say we have another little crack right here, the rocks. I think I'll make this side a plane, right? So let's make this edge kind of like planar. Let's add a little bit of our shading here, but it's going to be a very light shade because this part is actually closer to the light source for that plane of that face. And we could just add a little bit of slight little details like that. You can just see how we're just start to play around with this. Let's add a little bit of grass along the edge like that. So I'm just getting this, adding some nice little plants. Now we're using a digital software. We can take advantage of, you know, the tools we have by creating a new layer above this and calling it grass. But I'll just leave it here because I just like, hey, let's just create this nice little rock guy here. And we can add a little bit of grass around. Let's just push this up a bit. So this gives you a rough idea of the scale of this object. And let's just make this slightly bigger and just add just a rough indication of some chunks here, like that. So we'll just add a little bit of detail here, nothing too serious. Just add some of that here. And so that's the, I think I'm just going to stop right here to show you how that works. Now, if you want to, there are a lot of brushes. Now, we're using the pencil brush. If we go over here, it shows you which brush you have selected actually. So I'm just going to tear out the brush menu by clicking on the name and just dragging it out. And you can see, I'll just pull this down right here. We have a lot of these pencils. Right? Greasy pencil, carpenter's pencils, 2B, HB. It just simulates what your pencil does. And we can add the textures. So if I go over here, we can see textures, and this is where the fun actually begins for this. Let's say we want to add this nice little rocky texture here. Let's go over and add a new pixel layer above this and just add some of that. Now that's a bit too much. So what I want to do is to dial down the flow a bit. Or we can leave the flow. Let's leave the flow alone. I'll show you another way to do this. And let's make this quite large and add some of these nice little textures on the rock surface, like that. Let's even add a little bit of this scratch pattern around, like that, just to have a little bit of texture down here. And one of my favorites to use for grass, this one could work for some kind of like moss, you know, type thing here. So not too much, right? Just a little bit of that around. Now you can see we've added a little bit of texture to this, but the problem is it's too much. If it's too much, you have a layer that has an opacity, so dial the opacity down. So what I mean is right here, I'm going to call this details. And what we will do is to just click on this 100%, just dial it down. See that? So this is 100%. What about, say, 50? Just half of that. Right? So you can see we have this. We can even duplicate this. So I hit Control J. So it's now back to 100%. What I want to do is change the blend mode to something like multiply, just to darken those effects. And I'll still dial this down a bit. So this is it. It's really dark. We'll just dial this down a bit. And another trick you can actually do to kill out some of these details is to use the eraser tool. But the eraser tool now, don't use it at 100% hardness. Let's set the eraser tool to about this percentage, and we can just go around and okay, it's still super strong. So I think it's the flow. I'll just dial down the flow a bit, and let's just see. You can see, so we can use that to kill out the detail. Wherever we have excessive details, we can just kill that out. And now we can begin the cleanup phase, where we could just zoom in a bit and dial down our brush size, and we could just go around and kind of like remove some of these edges we don't want. I think we can even bump our hardness a bit, like the arrow for the light source. And then you can just clean up anywhere you feel, hey, I'm having too much unnecessary information here. I'll just clean this up, clean up this edge. There's something bleeding here, I don't want it, so just clean up, clean up. We all had fun today. Clean up your rock drawing and have a brand new day. Clean up. Okay, so you get the point. So yeah, just go around, clean up some of these edges. Definitely get rid of these test brush strokes. So, but we can actually zoom in on the brush stroke and see the kind of details we're having. And it's getting blurry because we're on the pixel persona. But hey, wait, that's not all. We can go back to the designer persona, and you can mix and match between designer and pixels, because this, you can actually see what's happening here is our rock, and these details of our nice little rock we created. You can use the same brush tools and still simulate a vector artwork with pixel brush tools. Sounds crazy, but it's true, and this is what I mean. So now I believe okay, so I can't find the brush layer. Okay, it's actually over here. I think just because I changed persona, so remember it wasn't docked. And what we can do is right here, you can see we have, if we go to patterns, for instance, we can go to hatching patterns. You can actually see we have that nice little hatch pattern. So instead of doing that hatching on this design manually, we can select a hatch brush. I'll just go over here, create a new vector layer, and then use that. So here, sorry. I'll just use the vector brush. You can see we have a nice little hatch pattern right here. So what we can do is we can make this quite large and just, whoa, that's super weird. So say we wanted to use this. So we have this pattern. What we can do now is to move this, rotate, scale, and we can always change how it looks like. So here, where it's weird, we could just bend this and bend this guy over here too. And remember, we can play around with the opacity. And there we have a vector hatch pattern on this object. And just like with the pixels, we can mask out each section to clip this from this object. And that's going to be what I'm going to talk about last right now, masking. How do we mask in Affinity Designer? Because it's very, very important. We want to create a design within a restriction. How do we mask in Designer? Well, let's just quickly see an example, and the video is getting too long. I'll just go to Window, Studio, and reset this studio so we have everything docked on the right and have our navigator docked right here too. So masking, how do we mask? Very simple. Let's create a shape. So here I have the heart tool selected, and this, the shape tool. If you click and hold the shape tool, it has the arrow down here, and you can select a variety of shapes. So I'll just click this rounded rectangle, draw something here, add, change the color of the fill like that. Might get rid of the stroke. So we have a pink shape. I'll just deselect by clicking out anywhere and changing the color and drawing another shape. So I'll hit V and I'll draw another shape, hit V again, and now I have two shapes. So how do I mask? Now pay attention, it's very fun. So here I'm clicking on this pink shape and I'll put that at the top. If I click and drag this shape here, we actually see it disappear because I dragged it and put it on top of this. But if we notice what's happening down here, it's actually down here. So we can just move this around and you can see what's happening. I'll just change this to a more obvious color. So you can see what's happening right here. Now this shape is clipped within this shape. It's not going anywhere. Let's just zoom in. It's not really going anywhere. It's just right here. See that? Cool, right? So we just drag this to the right and we have this shape. What we can even do is to duplicate this shape. So I'll click on this and hit Ctrl J to duplicate that shape. Now, oops, I'll just undo that. Now I could just move over here and draw a nice larger shape and change the color of that shape. Let's use something more obvious. Let's use this nice little purple. So you have a shape with lots of shapes, and you can see what you can do with this. You can create polka dot patterns. You can create your lighting and shading within an object, right? So that's one superpower of using the masking tools. Works slightly differently in the pixel persona. Works slightly differently. There's also a mask layer. You can create a mask layer here, but this one's another talk for another day. So I'll just go ahead and delete that. But if we go back to our pixel persona, this is going to be more common if you use any pixel tool. Let's create a pixel layer on top and say I have, let's just use the paintbrush and let's go over here. If we hit this, then we have a white mask. Pretty much that's what this does. It adds a white pixel mask that hides everything, reveals everything. A black mask will hide everything. So let me undo that and quickly try to, let's go to our color, select this dark little color. And let's see, we have this nice little texture. And I'm using grunge pattern 6 to create this texture we're seeing right here, and just have something very simple shape right here. And now let's hit the mask. So now we're drawing around here, but if you go back to this mask, let's hit D for our default colors. So now what we're doing is we already have that pixel selected. Now I'm using black to hide the pixels. I'm not painting. I'm painting inside the white mask, right? If I switch my brush to black by hitting X, we can actually see it flipped here. If I start painting, I'm bringing back the details. So that's what masking does. And we can actually see from the window right here where my pixel is, we are actually revealing what we already have. So this is a nice trick to either hide detail or to reveal detail or to reduce detail or to limit a detail from a specific section. So that's how you can use this tool. Again, let me just delete it because it's very confusing. I know what masks did to me back in the day when I was learning how to mask, especially on pixel persona. So let's get rid of this. Let's hide some of these. Let's just hide. Good. So let's create a new pixel layer and I'll put it above everything else. And I'll just lock each of these to make sure that we're not, yeah, so we have a blank pixel layer. I'll set the, we can even paint with this, we can sketch something with this brush. If we just, all we need to do is make it nice and kind of like small, and you can see you have a nice pencil brush just using the texture brushes. And let's just sketch a nice little, let's say a box, it doesn't matter, let's say a wall, a nice little pillar. And say this is an entrance somewhere. And yeah, let's make this very basic and very simple. So now I have the sketch. Let's call this good. So now I have a sketch, and let's say we added some shading here. Let's use this to let's add a little shading on this wall. So now you can see we have this shading and it's everywhere. We can use the eraser tool to try and make this super crispy perfect by just drawing around here. But we need to have that detail back. So that's where masking is going to actually help. So with that, let's just create a mask here. Now I'm creating a white mask, which is hiding all. I believe I hold Alt and click. So this is actually now hiding everything. So this is a black mask. You can create an opposite mask. So hide all. And if you want to reveal this, if I go back to the default brush and I believe I'm using, let's use a hard basic brush, this one. Okay, sun's up here. Let me just undo that real quick. And let's add this white mask. So now I have that hard round brush selected. So what I'm going to do is just I'm painting inside here like that. And I'm hiding this. So I'm not deleting, I'm just hiding this section. Like that. I wanted to bring it back, switch this to white. And yeah, you can smack me in the head. Why? Because I was using the eraser tool to do that's why it was not working. You can't use the eraser tool. So I'll go back to the paintbrush tool, add our mask. I was using the eraser tool. Can you imagine? Okay, so good. So that's why it wasn't working. In case you're following along and it was acting crazy, that's why it wasn't working. So I can now begin to hide some of this. So hide some of this detail and hide some of this detail as well. Right. And if we wanted to bring it back, let's switch over to white to reveal. So black will hide and white will reveal. So let's reveal what we just hid. And we can set this to a very high flow so we can have something really, strong coming back here. So I'll just kind of like do this to knock back some of the detail. So masking will really, really help you. So in case like, you know what, this detail, I hit so much of this detail and I actually did something wrong there. You usually want to separate the line work from the mask or the detailing so that you wouldn't hide your line work. Now I'm hiding the line work. Now I'm bringing it back. I'm hiding and bringing it back. So basically that's how masking works. You can use a different brush to let's try markers. Try this marker, and we can use a different brush to have that same effect. So you can even use masking to create very intricate details and patterns on your design. Yeah, so I think that's a lot. We've given a just the surface of what Affinity Designer can do. We have a lot of tools that we haven't spoken about. We have the smudge tool right here, the dodge tool, the burn tool. All these tools are available, but hopefully this gives you an idea of how the software works. Peace.